Welcome to the AVAIL Podcast, where we dig deep and talk about the art of leadership. My name is Virgil Sierra, and today we're sitting down with Josh Denhart to talk about navigating and de-escalating challenging conversations. As leaders, we all encounter them, so lean in for some great advice. Let's get started. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the AVAIL Podcast, where we bring practical, relevant leadership topics right to you, right to your computer, cell phone, TV, wherever you're watching or listening to this right now, whether it's podcast, YouTube. I am pumped to be here. I'm your host, Virgil Sierra. I get to host the AVAIL Podcast, where I get to connect with amazing leaders from around the country and around the world who have great, rich leadership resources, experiences, understanding, knowledge. And today is an opportunity to connect. He's a friend of the house. If you go back some episodes of the AVAIL Podcast, you'll find one that we did with Josh Denhart last year in 2020. And today we are back with Josh. Josh is a former children's pastor, entertainer, curriculum developer, and course creator. May I say, he is awesome. He's the founder of leadministry.com, which is an amazing resource. We'll talk about it a little bit later for you if you're a leader, if you're a pastor, if you're a volunteer who has leadership responsibilities. Josh, I am so pumped to share this time with you, and I can't wait for our AVAIL Podcast listeners and viewers to hear this conversation.
Absolutely. Super grateful to be here. I got a kindred spirit with you, Virg, and I'm super excited to be here. I think this is going to be a very, very, very practical look into hard conversations and de-escalating things, right?
Yeah. One of the things I really appreciate about you, Josh, is sometimes you get ideas and you'll bounce them off of me. And I love that, because as leaders, we need people that we can kind of share with and ask questions or say, hey, does this happen to you? And almost every time you reach out to me with maybe a thought or an idea, a leadership concept, I'm like, yes, 100%. That happens to me all the time. Or that's frustrating. And I know that we're not the only one. So here's the cool thing. And you know what, Josh? I know that there's some people who are watching or listening that it's their first time. Would you mind, before we go into the topic, which I want to kind of unravel in a moment, would you mind maybe just in a minute or two, share a little bit about your story, maybe the quick version of how you are and what you're doing now?
Absolutely. So I was a former high school chemistry teacher, of all things, who transitioned into full-time vocational ministry. I was at a big church, and I had a lot to learn really, really, really fast. Was very successful in a ministry context, had a great time. Since then, I have transitioned out of the local church and to create resources for those in the local church. So leadministry.com is kind of a course hub to effectively train leaders in the church where maybe they're not receiving coaching, encouragement, and support from other staff members, right? Everybody wishes they had that really, 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 really dedicated boss or a staff person over them. And often we don't have that. So Lead Ministry is kind of an opportunity. It's kind of a premier space and place for coaching and for courses for ministry leaders.
I love that. Hey, and if you're watching, we're going to give you more information on how you can connect with Josh a little bit ahead and his website. But I want to just say it is so worth it. You got to check it out. Great resources for leaders, for church leaders, for pastors, ministry leaders. Now, Josh, the topic of today's conversation is it really intrigues me, because I've been dealing with it and experiencing it for many, many years. And here's kind of how I'm gonna preface it is, as a leader in the church and even as a pastor, sometimes you get ambushed right before going on stage to preach, for example, right, or right before stepping into a meeting, and somebody comes, whether it's a staff member, whether it's a volunteer, whether it's a guest, whether it's somebody with an opinion or with a complaint or with some kind of comment, and it's very difficult to really deal with it in a real practical, relevant way quickly. And so here's what you want to unpack for us today. Specifically, 5 phrases for de-escalating conflict, because sometimes those moments can really end up in a big conflict if we're not careful. So I want you to just start shooting at us here a little bit of your thoughts.
So I think, Verge, that the most important starting place is the scriptures, right? And so this wonderful passage that has been soothing to my soul and has been 2 Timothy 2:24-26. I'm going to read it briefly. It says this: "And the Lord's bondservant must not be quarrelsome, but kind to all, skillful in teaching, patient when wronged, with gentleness correcting those who are in opposition, if perhaps God may grant them repentance, leading to a knowledge of the truth, that they may come to their senses and escape the snare of the devil, having been held captive to do his will." So let's frame it just like you already did so well. I'm walking at church on a time when the body is gathered, and oh my goodness, somebody makes a beeline to me. They now have my ear, and they want to have a very intense conversation about a complaint, about a concern, about a suggestion, or maybe they want, work with me, they want to impose their will and change things in the church. Now, I get it. We've all been there before. Now, the foundation is, I don't want to be quarrelsome. That's hard. But the Lord's bondservant ought not be quarrelsome. So I need a pathway to de-escalate and not start being combative. I have done that before, and it's very unfruitful. I want to be kind to all people. I want to be skillful. And I have to be honest with you, this skillfulness, that's what we're going to be talking about today, because what I'm going to be presenting is a set of skills that I wished I had instantaneously when I got into the ministry, but I've learned them over the years. I would say there are 5 phrases, as we talked about. The phrase number 1, when somebody comes to me and they are kind of starting to light me up and they're starting to kind of pepper me, my first phrase is this: "What you have shared is very interesting." Now, I'm not saying what they said is good. I'm not saying what you said was ridiculous. I'm saying it's very interesting. And so then in their minds they're like, oh my word, builds them up a little bit. It's kind of a non-answer. But what I don't want to say is, well, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. That is quarrelsome. No, it might be true that it's a dumb thing, but that's not a winsome.
Hey, Josh, some of us have done that. Some of us have done that.
Right? And it breeds an instantaneous a spirit of conflict and a sense of adversarialism where I want to take the lead and not be quarrelsome. I mean, what does the scripture say? Don't return evil for evil. Very difficult to obey Jesus in this. And so for me to say, I'm buying time. I mean, the rule of the game here in these hot pressure situations is buying time. So number 1, I say, wow, what you've said is very interesting. And then I follow up with, you've given me a lot to think about. Again, that's a building up statement. It almost gives rise to the idea that I'm probably still going to have to think about this. I'm almost hinting to the idea, I'm not going to answer you right now. What you've said is very interesting. You've given me a lot to think about. Now, this next piece is very nuanced, and you have to be careful with this because you may not. Phrase 3, you may not always be able to use. If it's at a coffee, if it's at a lunch, but if it's on Sunday morning and I've got 3 to 4 minutes at the most, I may not be able to use this one. But phrase 3 is there anything else? Now that sounds like a throwaway phrase, and actually it's not. In my time, what I have found is the issue is rarely ever the issue. That which is being presented often isn't really what's going on. Can I have an amen to that?
Amen.
And so what happens then, of course, is they are coming with issue A, but really, as I say, well, what you've said is very interesting. You've given me a lot to think about. Anything else? And 9 times out of 10, somebody will say something like, well, you know what? I am super upset at the youth guy. My kid is an excellent singer, but he's not giving him the microphone. I've gone to church here a long time and I'm super offended. And I'm like, okay, so this isn't the issue. This is the issue. And that helps me as
Mm-hmm.
a leader to say, wow, okay, wow, anything else? Well, you know something else? I really don't like the way you guys are doing baptisms right now. How come we can't do? Okay, anything else? And so then I'm clearing the decks. Now, again, you have to be cautious with this because I may not have time to have this
Mm-hmm.
elongated 30-minute gripe session and be the ears to hear that. But a fool thinks in their mind that what they're saying is the only thing going on. Not the case. Virgil, have you ever experienced that?
I've experienced it definitely. And the funny thing is, I don't know if it's that sometimes I'm a little bit impatient or or sometimes I'm quick. I want to say what I'm thinking, which is that idea is ridiculous, right? Or in this case specifically, I remember one time that somebody came and they were complaining about something, but when I got to the bottom of it, it really was that they were upset that nobody called them when they were out sick from the lead team or from their leaders. And so you're right. I think sometimes people they have these other things, but sometimes there's something that's a little deeper rooted or an offense that they're
Yeah.
holding on to. So these conversations are great because it lets us know. You can't fix it if you don't know about it. But I think that the phrases that you're
Exactly
giving
right.
us are key in helping to de-escalate in the moment, and that person feels heard, and now they at least understand, okay, they're going to get back to me.
Okay, so number one, they come to me. It's a little bit of a pressure thing. I'm sensing that they have some angst. Wow, what you're saying to me is very interesting. Number two, you've given me a lot to think about. Number three, anything else? And then I ask again, anything else? And then here's the real pivot point where I say, you know what? Let me take this back to the team. Now, this is the most important phrase of all. Let me take this back to the team because I don't want to make a decision in the moment. It's going to be a very, 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 I'm not in a position to think this through globally and holistically. And so I say, let me take this back to the team. First of all, leader out there in AVAIL podcast land, do you have a team? If you don't have a team unto which you can go to and say, hey, Connie Smith brought this up. I think it's crazy. Do you guys think it's crazy? They say, it is crazy. Then I can go back to Connie and say, you know, I went to the team and we talked about this and we, collective, we just don't know whether this is going to be something that we're going to be able to implement at this time. Watch carefully. This idea of team, it dilutes the leadership waters so that you aren't the sole face in place for the decision maker that needs blame.
So
You didn't push my idea through. Not true. The team, we have talked about this and we've decided that's probably not best for us right now. Now, beyond this, however, I don't just bring it back to the team, Virgil, so that I can have some ammunition to say, yeah, a lot of other people thought this was stupid. To be truthful, I want to be open as a leader. And I've brought things back to the team and they're like, man, that's actually genius. I never thought of such a thing. And so all of a sudden, in the abundance of counselors, there's victory and somebody might actually have a good idea, but I'm resistant and I felt threatened by them. But if I have time to peacefully bring it back to the team, I can chill things out a little bit. So it's buying time, and this idea of team is huge.
Yeah, I agree. I have a question for you, Josh. Why do you think that as leaders, until we've learned a technique or a strategy like what you're giving us, these 5 phrases to de-escalate those conflict moments, why do you think that we have this natural instinct to want to respond right away, to want to solve it right away? What is it? What is it in us? Because I think a lot of us have made the mistake to not ask any of these questions and just be like, oh, no, that's not what we do here.
Right. Yeah, I think the reason why listen, I'll be honest with you. I want to be the answer guy. I want to appear to be and by the way, I am pretty good on my feet. But I'm kind of mouthy too. And I need something to slow me down. So I think that, okay, another thing. I think that what we want to do is it's kind of, have you ever seen Karate Kid, right? And he teaches them wax on,
Yes.
wax off. And so when people bring me dumb ideas, I just want to poof, no, that's dumb. Get this. And I think the wisest move is to slow it down. I don't need to shut their idea down instantaneously. I actually think there's great
Right.
value in actually being a slower leader. I think there's a great value in being somebody who can make decisions quick. Totally get that. I am a quick decision maker, but not every decision needs to be made instantaneously.
Yeah, Josh, as you're talking, I think sometimes personality may have something to do with it. I'm kind of a
Big time.
let's go kind of guy, and maybe that plays a little bit against me in this, because I want to just, hey, I don't have time for this. Like, let's go. There's so many issues to resolve that I don't need this on my table. So understanding, I like that phrase, slowing down our leadership, like not being in a rush to have to respond in the moment. And I think sometimes my wife really helps me with that, because I tell her, man, I am really frustrated about this. And she's like, wait a second, just take a breath. It's okay. Think before you speak, think before you act. And I think that principle is behind these questions, these phrases that you're recommending for us, because so many times, especially high capacity leaders who are thinking steps ahead, and then especially if you think something really, or this doesn't go with our culture organizationally, or we did that and it totally didn't work. But how to really just show, I think there's love in this kind of leadership.
I think so too. And again, going back to 2 Timothy 2:24-26, not to be quarrelsome, to be kind, listening to someone and letting them speak, that's kind. Skillful in teaching, patient when wronged. I wished I could go back and adopt a little more patience when, let's listen, when I got into this thing from being a high school chemistry teacher, and I'm like, okay, you're a shepherd now. Well, nobody told me that the sheep sometimes bite. All right. And so when the sheep bite, what's my responsibility as a leader? It's to lead with gentleness. And this is the spirit of gentleness. These 5 phrases it's a gentle thing to think through. How could I dismantle this really dumb thing that they're suggesting, but allow them and to not malign their character, right? Somebody's coming with an idea. They don't understand the big picture, and it's my job, right, to skillfully teach and to show them maybe a bigger picture in the ministry, to be gentle with those who are in opposition. Now, again, for leaders like you and I am a fast mover. I am a driver of a person, and some dumb thing feels like it's standing in my way, but I'm called to be a shepherd far more than I am called to be my own personal kingdom builder. The kingdom is the people. The kingdom is shepherding. And what is shepherding? It's leading sometimes obstinate sheep toward quieter, more peaceful waters. And so these 5 phrases, I think it comes down to love, doesn't it?
Yeah. Before we walk, I want to walk through them and ask you a few questions about each one. But before we do that, Josh, I have kind of a, I don't know if it's out of left field, but kind of maybe kind of a different angle question, because sometimes the conflict or the complaint, the concern or suggestion or wanting to impose, whatever it is, sometimes it's a text.
Oh, baby.
Sometimes it's not necessary. And it could be a text right when you're about to go on stage or when you're about to go to a meeting, it could be. And so any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have to say, I don't like that we have to deal with this. I don't like, because text and email, in Facebook of all things, they are for black and white communication. They should no color, no nuance, no emotion. But we can not text that. But that does not mean that our people aren't going to text us.
Right.
And I would say that I would type back, what you have texted, it's very interesting. You've given me a lot to think about. I'm going to need to take this back to the team. Is that okay for you? Straight up. I mean, I'm literally buying time because I am not going to get into some high stress text one-upsmanship. Forget it.
We can get into a lot of trouble sometimes in those texts. That was very wise. Touche. You basically said the same phrases, but texting them, which I think is very, very wise. And again, we're not responding in the moment. Maybe I've had this happen. I type a whole 2-paragraph response, and then I say, honey, to my wife, can you please check this? And then she's like, oh, no. Delete that.
Listen, here's my rule of thumb. If I ever feel like I need to show somebody else to get that's my answer right there. The answer is no. If I have to show somebody else to go, hey, is this a little too over the top? I don't even need to ask. I know it's too much over the top. So, and I don't mean to say that these 5 phrases are the panacea, the fix-all for everything. But listen, an insider leader comes to me who I have relationship with. I'm not going to text him a stock set of answers. This is for that out of the blue random person who's a little more challenging. And I know that they're not on the inside and they don't have my best intentions. And we don't have the type of relationship that I can interact with them. So bottom line, I'm trying to slow things down. And that's hard for a fast guy, right?
Yeah, that's very true. Can I ask you, Josh, how did you start thinking about this, and how did you come up with this? Was it kind of did you just think, hey, let me think about what are some good, or experience, maybe a little bit of both, but how did you get to this?
100% experience, but doing it wrong many times over. But this first phrase, what you've shared is very interesting. I watched a dynamic, gifted, godly teacher. Now, he wasn't a preacher. He was a teacher in a crowd of about 50 people. I watched somebody multiple times ask a completely ridiculous question or say something completely ridiculous. And I watched how skilled and savvy this man was. And he would always step back a little bit and say, what you've asked is very interesting. And they kind of feel like, wow. Because he doesn't want to lose the crowd of people and go, oh, my word, if I say something stupid, he's going to bash me, right? So he said, what you've brought up is interesting. And then he went back. Listen to this. He went back to their commonly held knowledge, something that he knew they could agree on. And then he slowly and methodically taught and undid their dumb phrase. But it was very subtle. But it started with, what you've brought up is very interesting. Again, that is, oh, wow, so I'm interesting. And so that's where that phrase started. I watched him just beautifully do that. And by the way, are there dumb questions? Somebody's like, there are no dumb questions. Bull, there are tons of dumb questions. But I need to be a shepherd that allows people to feel that safe space. And so that's where that one came from. You've given me a lot to think about. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think that something I really like that you mentioned is sometimes the Lord places some incredible leaders that, or even men and women that have gone a little further than us, or have been doing it for longer, or have other insights. And I like that. I like that you share that, because as leaders, we always have to be learning, and you never know where you're going to capture a nugget from, right? That you end up talking about, that you end up teaching about, right? Just because of that. What you observed, or what you learned in that moment. So I like that. That's what you have shared is interesting. In Spanish, interesante. I got to learn them both because I got people in both in English.
Right.
All right. Question 2.
And to go along with that, is, gosh, you've given me a lot to think about. And so that allows breathing space. These conversations need oxygen, because when we don't have oxygen in these conversations, man, we start getting things can get fiery, right? We need oxygen.
100%.
So that's a good one.
I was going to mention, Josh, I think I think that this phrase, "you've given me a lot to think about," is important because the truth is, um, it is true. Sometimes we don't have to think too much about it, but there are times where we even need to pray about it.
That's right.
When somebody comes in with maybe even a doctrinal issue, like, hey, well, this is what, I think, doesn't the word say? And sometimes we're so set in our ways, but it's important to say, hey, wait, you've given me something to think about, and maybe we do need to think about it, right? Maybe, Lord, show me, show me in this process if there's anything that I need to see.
And it's not just that, like, that they've unpacked something new from Scripture. Sometimes they come with something that is like, bro, if we were to embrace that, that's heresy. But what I am caused to think about is, how can I be a kind shepherd and not malign them? That's often what I need to think about. You've given me a lot to think about, because I don't know at this charged moment how to answer you without cutting your head off. And that's exactly what I don't want to do. So I've got a lot to think about, because I need to process how I'm going to tenderly lead you. There's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. I like the third phrase. Let's go to the third phrase.
Yeah. So that one I learned from a wise old pastor. And he said, the issue is not the issue, and hurt people hurt people. And so I watched time and time and time again, is there anything else? Because there almost always was. And by the way, if I was seeking to solve their issue, but I did not know that there was an issue back here, this issue does not solve the issue. And so it's this insane rat race, right?
Mm-hmm. It is. And it's so cool. I'm writing down notes as we're talking, because I don't want to forget something I want to ask you a little bit. But I think that there's a high percentage of situations like we're talking about. Is there anything else? There's a high percentage of time that there is something else. There might be a percentage that there's not, but there is a percentage that there is something else.
Not only that, but what I not only want to be a good shepherd, I want to be perceived as a good shepherd. And asking that question, that's a good shepherding question straight out. Is there anything else that, because somebody might go, you know what? I'm glad you asked. It's really a challenging time. My mother-in-law had to move in with us. I'm going to have to take on new responsibilities at my job. I'm generally stressed. Well, as a shepherd, I want to know that. Right. And I'm allowing somebody to vent their stuff, even if it doesn't have to do with this. And even if they're not angry, a good shepherd wants to know, hey, this sheep, they have a limp, but they're carrying it pretty well. I want to know about that limp. Right.
Yeah, that's good. I love it. I love this. I think each one of these is really, even though they're so simple, these phrases, they're really profound.
Yes.
Number 4, let me take this back to my team. This is genius on multiple levels. It's genius because I'm buying myself time, like you said earlier. It's genius because I am making the person aware that it's not me. I'm not the one that's making this decision, solely, even if I kind of am. But it positions me as the leader in a place where I'm expressing to them, hey, what you're saying is interesting. You've given me something to think about. I'm going to go talk it over with the team because, hey, I need my team. We don't make decisions alone here. And the person is understanding, oh, okay, he's taking me seriously.
That's exactly right. In addition, I'm telling you, Virgil, I do not lead in isolation, and I have never led in isolation. I actually truly do lead in community. I am a social learner. Listen, I've got a master's in effective instruction, national board certified in teacher excellence, right? So I know how the brain works, and I know my brain. I am a social learner. And so that's why I get a hold of you and throw you some ideas, because I want to discuss and dialogue. So the team is not just a safety place, it's actually a learning space. Beyond this, here's where you asked me earlier, how did I come up with these 5 phrases? This one right here, I actually gleaned when I was a high school chemistry teacher, because there was a superintendent and he was surrounded by the superintendency. So he would make really big decisions, but it was positioned as these five. The superintendency has decided. It was keeping him out of the line of fire for somebody to go, I hate that idea, and he's the exclusive face that I should aim my ammunition of hatred and vitriol. No. He diluted the pain by having it be the superintendency. And I noticed that and I was like, that's absolutely genius. So he's not putting his neck way out. It's 5 necks. And so for all I know, the third person on the superintendency was the real driver of that. So I really don't have any one person to blame. I have the entire superintendency to blame. There is a little bit of safety in numbers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wonder if I should call that at my church. The superintendency has decided not to. No, I'm just kidding. So this leads us to the 5th phrase, which is, would you say that you feel heard right now? This is a little bit coming to the heart as well.
Yes, that's a critical one. And I have to tell you, this is one that it took me a long time to incorporate. I think it's one of the most important, and it's at the very end. And by the way, let's say that they say, yes, I do feel heard. That right there is a win. If they say, you know what, I don't feel heard. I don't think like you fully understood me. I'm going to say, hey, listen, again, you have given me a lot to think about. Let me go back to the team. Let me take what you've shared and we're going to mull this over. And then I want to come back to you because I really want to make sure you do feel heard. Are you okay with that? And that just pushes pause because everybody wants an instantaneous answer, including my very own children. They want, no. Can I do this? Like, I want to talk about this now. I don't want that. I want to say, hey, let's get together with your mom because listen, do I want to be the bad dad? No, I want to be bad parents. You follow me? Right?
Yeah.
So, but do you feel heard? If they say yes, huge win. If they say no, I have a means of recourse. Does that make sense, Virgil?
It makes sense totally. And as we're talking about this, the one thing I'm thinking in my head is I want to share these with my team, with my staff team and my leadership. I want to share it with them because I think they're going to come back and say, thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Pastor Virgil. I'm so thankful that you brought, because the truth is everybody on their own level, whatever tier of leadership they're in, will face these things, whether it's, student ministry, whether it's kids ministry, whether it's production team, whether it's worship team, whether it's, events and baptism, there's always going to be people with opinions, with concerns, with complaints, with, suggestions. And so I'm excited. And for every leader who's watching or listening to this podcast right now, you got to grab these, kind of digest it a little bit, listen to this podcast 1 or 2 times, even if you got to put it on 1.5 speed, if you listen to it, check it out. They're really, I like how you made it simple, Josh. It's not complicated, but it's deep. And if we share this with our team, they're going to thank us.
Now, I have to tell you, you literally took the words out of my mouth. That's what I was just getting ready to share next. And I actually equipped my team with this. And I told them, I said, hey, this is a safety umbrella for you. You do not have to be expected to answer anybody and placate them or give them an answer right now. These phrases are your safety umbrella. And I'm telling you, you have permission to tell them that you need to take this back to the team, which, by the way, Virgil, I had some very, very, very gifted people on my team. And other staff members sometimes wanted one of my gifted people to pull off something for them out of a friendship thing, right? They're like, hey, you're killer at editing video. Could you just do this for our team? Because the video team can't get to ours. And I would have my team say, this is just a way of diffusing everything. Hey, that's great. I really need to take this back to the team and see if this is something that we can squeeze in. So it's pushing pause, right? But would you say that you feel heard right now? That's a good marriage one. That is a good kid to dad one. You know, is what I'm sending this? Do you feel like that who doesn't want to be heard, right? They came to
Yeah.
you because they've had this angst for a while. I want to give them an opportunity to say, yes, you did hear me. That's a huge win, man.
Hey, this is a little side note for any insecure leaders out there, because, hey, it happens sometimes, but maybe you're thinking, if I teach this to my team, if you're a leader and you're thinking, if I teach this to my team, they might use it on me, right? Maybe I asked them to do something.
I would say that's a good thing. I would say that's a good thing.
Yeah, right. Because I might say to, the person who's leading, videos and production, and say, hey, I need to do this and to do this. And if they might need to be wise. And instead of just saying, oh yeah, because they think they have to, say, hey, let me talk to the team to see when we can, realistically, what order of priority, interesting.
It is. And so the value is I don't want to succumb to pressure decisions, but I don't want other people to be pressured by me. I want to have that, like, from here down. I don't want that. I want what's best. I don't just want my way. And I tell you, put that into your pipe and smoke it, leader. Do you want what's best, or do you want your way? We often think that our way is the best, and I lead in a plurality of a leadership context, not in isolation.
I love it. Josh, this conversation has been awesome. Basically, you've unpacked this paradigm, 5 phrases to de-escalate conflict, or even potential conflict, because it might not be something that's going to necessarily be conflictive, but avoid, de-escalating it, as opposed to responding quickly, answering too quickly, and then bringing it on yourself, which happens. And then you have those moments of, hey, where did so-and-so go? I haven't seen them in a month or two. And these stories that happen as leaders in church and in ministry. This is so good. So can you take that Bible passage from 2 Timothy and kind of tie it all together, just now that we've heard it from you?
Yeah, I would say the Lord's bondservant must not be quarrelsome. How does quarrelsomeness happen? Usually a speedy tongue. Yeah. Usually I'm impatient and I'm like, you are an absolute bother to my agenda, right? I say conflict comes from, this is another whole entire podcast, but conflict comes from one of two places. I am either being exposed or I'm being opposed. So it's like, you're in my way and I have conflict now. Or you're showcasing that we may have some chinks in our armor as a leadership team. Both of those things offend me. And so I can quickly bite back. So the Lord's bondservant, I need to slow things down. Speed for me is usually going to be embroiled in quarrelsomeness. Also, be kind to all, not just the pretty people, Virgil. Everybody. We need to be kind to them all, not just the pretty people, not just the powerful people, and not just the rich people. We need to be kind to all. The way that I do that is to be skillful in teaching. And listen, I had no idea how much relational savvy was going to be necessary and how much relational moxie was going to be necessary to lead in ministry. You got to be a sharp relational cookie, and you have to have like a super high EQ. And part of that is being skillful in teaching and know what's necessary right now. Now, here's the funny thing. Patient when wronged. When somebody is coming with a complaint, I'm either going to feel like they're opposing me and my ideas, or I'm going to feel like they're exposing my inadequacies. I need to say, oh, hold on now. And I can lash quick, patient when wronged, and just slow everything down. My heart rate just increased. This is a great opportunity to kick this forward. I don't want to deal with this right now. Not because I'm an avoider, but because there's great wisdom in de-escalating. With kindness, watch this, gentleness, correcting those who are in opposition. I am not going to be gentle in this hot cooker of a situation. I'm going to need to leave. I'm going to need to think about what I'm going to say, and I'm going to need to calm my spirit and present something in a gentle fashion. Yes, they may need correcting and say, and I'm, correcting those who are in opposition. It may be, hey, you should do baptism this way. Well, I may need to think and educate them about, okay, real quick. One time somebody came to me with this really charged idea. And I said, okay. So then I spent 30 minutes with the guy, and I walked around church because he wanted to knock out this wall and he wanted to blow out this door. And I said, okay, let's do that. Well, help me understand, what do we do next? He was like, oh, that's simple. We just blow this out. Okay, so then that's going to displace this. What would you do now? 30 minutes of walking around, going with his idea, and then he finally concluded, wow, I guess there's a lot of moving parts here, and that one thing that I suggested isn't really going to work. And in a sense, I was gentle in correcting his completely insane $70,000 stupid idea. But I didn't need to blast him and ruin a relationship. So I led him to conclude that his idea was completely impractical. But this is this embodiment, right, of this 2 Timothy 2:24-26. Be a shepherd. And I got to tell you, man, if I can do one thing, it's slow things down. 9 times out of 10, the problems that I've experienced in my life and in my ministry is because of a quick mouth.
So true. Hey, drop the mic. I love it, Josh. So this is great. As we're wrapping this conversation up, Josh, one thought came to my mind. And after this, I really want to share with people how they can connect with you, share some websites, some information, also talk a little bit of AVAIL Journal. But this thought came to my mind. When we have one of these de-escalating conversations and we say, hey, you've given me a lot to think about, is there anything else? We must get back to them. We can't forget. We have to, I think, and this would be helpful for me, because sometimes that moment was one out of 20 things that happen in a matter of a couple of hours. And we must develop some kind of system personally so that we make sure that we don't forget, because that we can get in trouble there because that person's waiting by the phone for a week or 2 or 3.
Yes.
Pastor didn't get back to me.
Now, okay, I want to speak to that, because that last phrase, would you say that you feel heard right now? A little addendum to that is, would it be helpful for me to reach back out to you? Or would you say that what we've talked about kind of makes sense to you? So there are times where they literally just wanted to be heard. That's it. And I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, right? So there are times where I say, hey, would you say that you feel heard right now? Would you say that you, whatever, right? But if I am definitely putting them off, and this is a multi-pronged, really complex, convoluted situation, I am going to have to get back in touch with them. Now, here's another phrase that I learned more recently. I would say, hey, when would be a good time for me to reach back out to you? I do not want to put it into their court and say, hey, why don't you get back in touch with me? Whoa. Not good. When would be a good time for me to reach back out to you? And they might say, hey, you know what? It's good. I just wanted to have you hear me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring it to your attention that I think the way we do baptisms is stupid. Okay. So you don't need me to get back in touch. No, I just wanted to tell you that. Sweet. I'm out. But the idea is discerning whether this demands follow-up, because not everything does, if I could be so bold.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Sometimes that moment is enough. So I guess referring to those moments where there isn't a resolution and I got to go take it back to the team and get back to you, make sure to not forget. And very, 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 very wise. Very, very wise. Hey, Josh, we mentioned leadministry.com. How can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about you and all the resources that you're putting out there?
Sure. I would say the best space to go to is leadministry.com. It's kind of a hub for ministry, in-depth ministry courses. and for
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one ministry coaching, right? So I will be on a call just like this, and we will deal with big picture items as well as specificities that somebody is going through in their ministry, right? So I have courses that people could go through. So this right here could be, though it is not, this could be a course topic that we walk through and that we have,
Yeah.
these key phrases and a worksheet for you to work through. So lead ministry, courses, coaching for those who are needing extra support in a ministry context, right? Leadministry.com.
I love it. I love it. I know that I've connected to Lead Volunteers, which is specifically for people who are
Yes.
leading volunteers, which is a big category for those of us who are in the church world. And it's been so insightful and so helpful.
Yeah.
And so the resources you're putting out, Josh, they really come from a place of experience,
That's right.
years of ministry opportunities,
right.
Out there, and also learning. I think that's one of the values that you bring to the table. You can bring some amazing coaching and some amazing courses that are placed in our hands, and it's up to us to use them.
Yes. And so, as you said, leadvolunteers.com is kind of our flagship course. And you are a member of that, and you've gone into that. So that's exciting, man.
I love it. Hey, social media. Are you on social media? Where can they find you?
Yes. Just Josh Denhart. If you do any kind of a search on Instagram, on Facebook, on all of the rest, Josh Denhart, it'll get there.
Awesome. Hey, Josh, before you give us some final thoughts, something you want to leave in all the leaders' hearts, I want to mention the AVAIL Journal. I happen to have a very amazing issue here about a bilingual church in South Florida. Anyway, the AVAIL Journal is an awesome journal that is a leadership, practical, relevant leadership context, principles, content. An awesome. The AVAIL Journal is awesome. I know you're familiar with it. I know that you've contributed.
I sure have.
You've written articles for AVAIL Journal. What would you say to people out there about the AVAIL Journal?
I would say that the AVAIL Journal is, in my opinion, the top shelf leadership magazine that exists right now. It feels like it's classy. It feels like it's worthy, and the contents inside don't disappoint. So I think it's the top leadership journal, and it's classy. It's a classy. It's one that you save. Yeah. It's one that you have in your arsenal as a go back. It's a great deal, man. I think that it's brimming with great leadership material.
We appreciate that, Josh, and it really is an awesome leadership resource. By the way, you can claim a free annual subscription of the AVAIL Journal by going to availjournal.com. We invite you to take advantage of that offer. They come out quarterly, so that means in a year you're going to get 4 of these. The AVAIL Journal, you will not be disappointed with the leadership content and resources. And you never know what you're going to find, including awesome material from Josh Denhart. Hey, Josh, as we wrap things up, what do you want to leave on the hearts of all of our leaders?
People are hurting, and they have ideas, they have concerns, and for it to fall on deaf ears, it's very likely that they're not going to want to stay. Listen, where people have say, they're typically going to stay. Where they have say, they're going to stay. And if nothing else, learn a couple of really practical skills to be a better listener and a better avoider of quarrelsome in the moment fighting. You can put it off to the future. Get a team. Am I right?
So good, man. This conversation has been so fun. I could probably go another hour just going taking all this apart more.
Sure.
But Josh, thank you so much on behalf of the AVAIL team. We're so thankful for you, for your ministry, for your leadership on a personal level. You've been a blessing to my life. I know that right now in this season, the Lord is continuing to just open doors for you and everything that you do on a ministry wise. And we're thankful. It's very well deserved. On behalf of the AVAIL team, we honor you, brother. We're thankful for your life, and we can't wait to see all else that God has for you.
Thank you very much. I'm super honored to be here, and I feel like I'm growing as you and I discuss these things. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Hey, everybody. This has been an amazing conversation, as always, here on the AVAIL podcast. Josh Denhart, he is an amazing leader, and we're thankful for for him sharing with us these 5 phrases that we can use to de-escalate potentially conflictive situations and conversations. We hope you've been challenged and encouraged. My name is Virgil Sierra. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the AVAIL podcast. We hope you've been equipped with some helpful leadership insights by this conversation with Josh Denhart. Remember, you can connect with Josh and check out his website by going to leadministry.com. For more leadership resources, check us out at theartofleadership.com. And make sure to claim your free annual subscription of the AVAIL Journal at availjournal.com. If you'd like to connect to our growing leadership community on Facebook, visit availleadershipconnect.com. As always, I'm your AVAIL media host, Virgil Sierra. Muchas gracias. Thank you for connecting with us to learn the art of leadership here at the AVAIL podcast.